Hello everybody and welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. This isn't actually the start of the podcast. The podcast will literally be coming in just a few moments. I'd just like to say really quickly before we crack on this episode of the podcast, it's a really good one. You don't want to miss it. Basically, I'd just like to say a massive thank you for all the support you've been giving me on the podcast. It's actually been fantastic. I never thought it'd do as well as it's doing, and some people might say that's not very well, but in my opinion, it's doing it. I think it's doing really well. And to be honest with you, as long as I'm just sort of entertaining or making one person enjoy themselves when they listen to this podcast, that's really why I do this. So thank you so much for that. I am on a personal road. I'm not sure if you know, to get 100 subscribers before the end of this year and before the start of 2021. You're probably thinking, Jack, if I hit the subscribe button, what do I get out of this deal? And in that, I'll tell you what you're going to get. We'll be getting live watch-alongs, live episodes of the podcast, live match reactions, live match previews, everything you're getting now, plus live content as well, so we can interact with each other. We can talk about football on an interactive level. It'll be very, very exciting, and that'll be happening in the new year as well. So we're not just going to be keeping what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing that, plus live content as well for the podcast. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get bigger as well. So hopefully you enjoy, and hopefully you continue to enjoy this episode of the podcast. I'm going to start rambling on now. So if you could hit that subscribe button, I think it's 62% of you that watch this content and watch the podcast aren't subscribed. If that is one of you, then please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for those that already have subscribed, but just thank you to everyone that really just watches the content and watches the podcast. You are all welcome, and welcome to the Young Fan Podcast if you're new as well. But anyway, I'll see you later. Enjoy the episode of the podcast, and yeah, I'll see you in a bit. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. Strange conditions today. It's not a windy night at Stoke. It looks like I'm about to take a school photo. I'm not. I am recording an episode of the podcast, the Young Fan Podcast. Don't worry, I'm not a new person since I've been away. I've been away for 3 days and I'm coming back and I look like I'm back to a news report for the BBC or a school photo or any of the above, really. What I'm actually going to be doing is a normal episode of the podcast. It's going to be a preview. I'm having to hold the microphone because I'm not in my normal podcast surroundings, I guess. I will be back in there soon, hopefully for the match reaction tomorrow. If not, you might have to deal with another podcast episode, me looking like this in these surroundings. Apologies for that. But I wanted to do the preview. I was desperate to do the preview. I had to do it, even if it does mean I'm having to look like an absolute idiot in these conditions. We're going to crack straight on with it, and we're going to get straight into the preview. Now, I also must stress as well, I'm literally, the setup, I wish I could show you the setup that I'm dealing with right now. I've got my two lights and the camera, but normally in front of me I have the notes that I sort of go by in the podcast. I can't actually have that in front of me today, and I've got them down here. So apologies if I do start looking down there. It's not because I don't want to make eye contact, but if I said I wanted to make eye contact, it'd be a bit strange, but you know what I'm trying to say. I am looking down there to look at my notes, so apologies if there is an eye contact loss there at times throughout the podcast. But we're going to be previewing today Oxford United's game against Fleetwood, a difficult game for Oxford United, especially when you add bad form to the occasion. It's going to be a very, very difficult game for Oxford United. And like I said, with the bad form we're on as well, and the sort of mentality in form that looks like we can't win a game at all, it's a problem. It really is a problem. I'm going to stick my phone on silent. There we go. Just making sure that, all professional at the podcast. We don't mess about. We always prepare. Hence why we look like this. But let's crack straight on with it then. It's not going to be an easy game like I've just said, but let's get the notes straight on here as well. I'm not going to lie, I sort of was writing out the notes and sort of got bored a little bit and was like, I'll just make something up as we go. Hopefully it sounds decent. But I have got the main information here that I'm going to go with. I think I can remember the names of the players that aren't available for the game against Fleetwood. A very difficult game against Fleetwood, like I've already mentioned. We don't beat Fleetwood. It's a bogey team. It is our bogey team. We don't tend to beat them, which is quite frustrating and definitely not a game we wanted to go into when we can't win a game against the teams that we do have a good record against. If we can't beat them, then the bogey team looks like it's going to be even harder. But I think, to be honest with you, we've got to just go out there we've got nothing to lose. We've got to prepare well, of course we do. We've got to go out there like this season. It can go either way, and you choose if you make this a successful season. I think that's what Carl Robinson's got to say to the players today, because ultimately, if we don't prepare and we don't have a successful season, I think that will probably be the reasons behind why we don't. Because it's not going to be an easy game at all. We know what Fleetwood are like. They got into the semi-finals of the playoffs last season. They've got a good manager in Joey Barton. You look at him either way. He's a bit of a character, of course he is. But I feel like for Fleetwood, that sort of works. Having a bit of a character as a manager might work either way. I'm not too sure how Fleetwood fans see him as a manager. It's like I said, a very feisty character, a bit of a fiery character in his playing days, and I'm sure that definitely still does happen in his managing days as well now. But it's going to be a really, really difficult game for Oxford United, and we've got to prepare it in the right way, and we've got to go about it in the way that's going to get us the 3 points, because ultimately now the season is sort of in this bit now where if you don't get a good start, we haven't had a very good start at all, we've got to pick up points, because ultimately this could be the end of the season before we've even started. And I know that sounds crazy when we're only 7 games in or whatever it is, and we've still got 2 games in hand, but I've got to stress as well, if those 2 games in hand, how are those 2 games going to go? We can say that we've got 2 games in hand and we can win both of them, but ultimately, if we don't win both of them, where do we go? I can tell you where we go. We're in the bottom. We'll definitely probably be bottom of the league. We're already 22nd in the league as I'm recording this, so we're in the relegation zone. Which is not an ideal place to be. Of course, it isn't. Like I said, even 6 or 7 games in, being in the relegation zone is clearly not a good start to the season. And especially as a lot of people, including myself, were pretty open about us hoping that it was going to be a successful season and us potentially being in the playoffs. I was very, very open with that. I did my predictions and things like that, and I said that I think Oxford United can definitely get in the playoffs this season. We did some decent business, some good business, I'd say. I'm not going to change my opinions on that, because I think a lot of people might do that, and I don't really want to be known as the person that is going to change the opinion to fit what the situation we're in. I could easily say now that we did bad business because we're in a bad position. But I said back then, I'll keep saying this now, we did good business in the transfer window. We have been unlucky with injuries. It's not an excuse, it's a factor of a reason why we're not being so successful this season. So I'm not going to change my view on it. I'm not going to change the way that I'm looking at the situation. We're still in a bad position in the league, but ultimately we've got to change that around. We've got to turn that around, and only we can turn that around. It's not going to be easy to be able to do that when you're in the sort of in a rut as it is when it comes to results, but only the players can do it. We can't do anything else other than stay at home and watch from home. That's the only thing we really can do at the moment. We can't be at the stadium as it stands. We could be in the next few weeks. I doubt it's going to be weeks. It's probably going to be after Christmas, looking at it right now, which is a frustrating thing to take in. But ultimately, we've got to be honest. We've got to be realistic about the situation. I'm not going to go into a massive coronavirus debate. That's not what I want to do. That's not what it was about. But the reality is that this is a big issue, and it's only really, unfortunately, I hate to say it, getting worse at the moment. It's not ideal. Of course it's not ideal, but I can't see fans being allowed back into stadiums. So if Oxford United are waiting until we come back into stadiums to start performing, unfortunately, if I'm being completely honest, I think the season probably would have been easily wrapped up by the time we're allowed back into stadiums. If not wrapped up, definitely be in the sort of area where I think we may finish the season. If we're in a playoff push, we could end up in the playoffs when we come back to the stadiums. But if we're in the bottom half of the table and fans are back in the stadium, how many fans are going to come back into the stadium? Of course, I will, being a season ticket holder. I'm sure lots of people will as well. But the reason why we had such a great support last season was because ultimately we were in a fantastic position last season, really pushing on and hoping for a really successful season. So hopefully we can get as many fans back into the stadium once we can. But at the moment, the reality is we're not going to be able to have fans back into the stadiums at the moment, which isn't ideal. But ultimately, we've said that the reason may be because of our we could be struggling a little bit is because we rely a lot on a great fan base. But ultimately, we've got to get to the reality and the facts are straight. There won't be fans in the stadium at least until Christmas. I don't work for the government, as you can probably tell. But obviously, I just looking at the situation we're in as a country and I guess the world, I can't see fans being back allowed into stadiums. Unfortunately, it's frustrating, but it was just what we got. It's just what we got to deal with. It's just what we've got to get our hands on and decide and take the opportunity with 2 hands and grab it and just be honest with each other and say we probably won't have fans back in this stadium for a little while, boys. But ultimately, while they're not in here, let's make them proud while they're not in the grounds. And I still believe in the boys. Of course, I do. Sometimes I can come across a little bit frustrated after games. Of course, I will. I'm a fan. I'm not a person that works for the football club. I'm not a person that comes on there and will sort of, sing the praises of players when we've lost a game. I didn't do a match reaction. I apologise for that against Charlton. 1, because I was away, and 2, if I was here, finding the motivation to do a match reaction on a Tuesday night game against that wasn't ideal. And again, we spoke about it again. When we dominate the ball, we've got to make things happen. It was the same story against Charlton. We had aspects of having the ball, we didn't do anything with it, and as soon as they did, it was game over pretty much from then, which is extremely frustrating and something we've got to cut out. And we've ultimately got to sort out if we want it to be a successful season. So it is frustrating, of course it is, but only the boys can turn it around as well. And this isn't going to be a Charlton match reaction, but leading on from that, I think I think Charlton sort of summed up the season a little bit, in my opinion. I think we, for a lot of times this season, in multiple games this season for Oxford United, it's been a simple case of when we've got the ball, we don't look like we're going to score, and we have done that, and we have had the ball and scored, but too many times we haven't. An interesting stat, as I see down there as well, Corumson actually mentioned it in his preview, so fair play for him actually mentioning it in the preview, because I haven't heard of it. So for the manager to come out and say this, you know, if I was a manager, I personally probably wouldn't want to be this honest about the statistic, because it's not something that a lot of people may know, but if you watch the preview, you'd know it. We've had 2 games, obviously, against Charlton and MK Dons, one of which we did win. Obviously, we had a postponed game in the middle there as well against Swindon. But ultimately, the 2 games we've had in that week, we've had 3 shots on target and we've conceded 4. Which is not a good statistic at all. You know, that's actually over the amount of shots on target we've conceded in those sort of games as well. Now, I'm trying to wrap my head around how that would work. I was trying to do that before, and I think if I'm being honest, I think it is the free kick that they scored. I'm pretty sure that is what he means by that. I'm trying to think of the goals that he scored. I mean, the first goal against MK Dons was a ball across the box for a pretty much tap-in. The second goal for MK Dons was, a shot from outside the box. And Charlton's first goal was a good finish. It has to be the free kick, because they're the 4 goals I can actually picture those goals, the 4 goals that we've conceded against MK Dons and Charlton. But it's a big game. It's a huge game against Fleetwood, of course it is, and we've got to capitalise on that statistic. If there's 3 shots on target and on target and 4 goals conceded, I think you've got to look at the defence a little bit and think, look at the boys and look at the players and say, you've got to sort that out. We all make mistakes, of course we do. That's just a way of life, and that isn't just in football. We all make mistakes, but it's how we bounce back and prevent those mistakes from happening again that's the main thing. It's fine if we make a few mistakes and then we learn from it and, we have one of the best defensive records in the league. But these are countless mistakes that are happening again and again and again that need to be stopped and need to be resolved before ultimately the season is wrapped up and the fate of the season for Oxford United is already is finished and resolved. Because if we do get to a part of the season when the season is over and we haven't resolved the issues, we're going to be in the bottom. We're going to, we could be fighting a relegation battle, and that is something that I don't think any of the fans, certainly me, and I think the majority, thought where we would be this season. The reality is we're in the relegation zone. That's just the reality. It's not me trying to, pick out things that aren't true and say this is where we are. This is where we are. We're in the relegation zone. You just got all you got to do. You go on Google, go on your phone, League One, the table. We're in the relegation zone. That's the reality of it. Is we're not used to being there after successes of last season, but ultimately we are now. So it's how the players react to being in the relegation zone in League One so far this season. Only 7 games in, and you try and get yourself out of that situation as quickly as possible. It's not easy, of course it's not, but only the players can change that, and only the players can prevent, and try and get us out of the relegation zone and prevent us from dragging us into a relegation battle this season. Now, in terms of injuries, Brannigan's going to be out again with an eye infection. Not ideal, and something that I don't want to be seeing again and again over the course of the season. Well, again and again, I don't want to see him out for a long-term season again. Of course I don't, but of course all of our thoughts are with Brannigan. Get well soon, mate. An eye infection does not sound great at all, so hopefully you do get back to football as quickly as possible, because we definitely do need you, and you are showing how an influential player you are in midfield. So it is frustrating, but hopefully we can get Cameron Brannigan back into the season and back into the side as quickly as possible when he does, of course, come back from that from what looks like a pretty horrible infection to the eye. Hopefully we can sort that out, and Brannigan can get himself fit and back into the swings of things for Oxford United, of course. But the main thing, of course, is him recovering as quickly as possible. Of course it is. The next player is Hansen. Jamie Hansen will be out. He's not going to be available for Fleetwood. Did I think he was going to probably play if he was available? No, that's not being very horrible to Jamie Hansen. Do I think Jamie Hansen comes into the side? Of course he doesn't at this point. Interestingly though, I think, now I say that, we have sort of worried about the defensive cover we've got at right back, left back, at centre back. Now, obviously, Jamie Hansen, of course, before he sort of had an injury, quite a bad injury. I think it must have been last season or the season before. No, it's the season before that. He was doing a really good job at right back, I remember, and then he got that injury, and then we didn't see him again since. And he's been sort of on and off the pitch, and in training and things like that since that injury. But I do remember him doing a pretty good job at right back. So maybe that could change. Maybe we could see Jamie Hansen coming in as a right back cover. We know he can play right back and in midfield, and sort of a defensive midfielder midfield role as well. We actually bought Jamie Hansen for a pretty decent figure from Derby a few seasons ago now, so it'd be great if he could come back, because I'm sure he's a really good player. We just haven't seen him enough. He's just been so sort of surrounded with injuries so much since he's been at Oxford United. It is very unfortunate, something of course that he probably can't help himself, but this is the way it is. Injuries happen in football. We just got to get him back on the pitch and get him back, I guess, in the team, and in the squad, I guess, as quickly as possible, and see how good he can be going forward for Oxford United. But he's not going to be available for Fleetwood. Do I think he would have been available in the squad for Fleetwood anyway? I don't think he would. But it's, we need a player like Jamie Hansen. He can play in multiple positions. He can play in midfield and he can play at the back. And most importantly in there, he can play at the back. And we need more players playing in that defensive area, clearly. So interesting to see that he's not there. I don't know what the injury is, to be honest, but he's been, very injured since he's been at Oxford United, but hopefully he can sort that out as well. Another injury, of course, Winner was going to be out. A similar sort of situation to Hansen, but not really, because obviously Hansen signed and then had been injured. Winner was actually injured, signed. It was signed, injured, signed, injured, and then he sort of got back into the fitness. He was actually then on the bench against Peterborough, or Gillingham, I can't quite remember. I think it was Gillingham, actually, thinking about it. Played about 10 minutes of football, and then obviously was not available against MK Dons, where Cooper took his place on the bench, and then from then Winnall basically, we haven't seen him since, and I'm saying that like it's been a long time. It's been about a week, but not ideal for over a week, but not ideal for Winnall. We think he can be a good player. Of course, we bought him. I think it's on a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal. It's a free transfer. I know he's got a pretty good goal scoring record against the teams of like Sheffield Wednesday, I think it is. So yeah, hopefully Winnall can get back. He's got some real firepower. I'm sure he does going forward. Someone actually mentioned that's not my line. I literally just stole that. I did steal that from somebody in the comments of one of the match reactions, saying that I think Taylor and Winnall will be a really good option up front in terms of firepower, is the word they use, hence why I've stolen that. Thank you very much for that. It's a decent saying. I think they will be good firepower. We've got to get him fit first. That seems to be the difficult bit, but hopefully Winnall can be back in and be available for selection for Carl Robinson and Oxford United soon. Do I think he comes straight into that team? I don't know. We're not scoring goals, so I don't think we can write it off completely. So Winnall's not available, unfortunately, but what can you do? Injuries happen in football. We've got another player out injured as well, which brings our total to 4, which is not ideal. And obviously that is our main centre. Well, I say our main centre back. More, I'd say, is our main centre back, but our main partner to our main centre back. So I guess our main partnership in that back line, Rob Atkinson, is not going to be fit. He came off injured against MK Dons, then actually came back in training. I think after the game against Charlton, and then obviously got injured with a groin injury in training. So that's not ideal. And someone actually said to me, I'm going to lie. I could lie and say I thought this myself, but I did actually see someone say, could the Rob Atkinson, the reason why he's not staying so fit is because when you go from being a non-league player to a League One player, or any league football really, you go from basically playing and training 2 or 3 times a week and then obviously playing, whereas in league football you're training pretty much every day and you've got a game as well. So it is a pretty tight schedule, I imagine, for Rob Atkinson. A very big ask, of course, a big jump up, but hopefully he can sort that out, and hopefully he can get back to fitness as well. And Massinio's back on the bench as well, which does give us some more cover. It's good to see him back on the bench as well. But yeah, this is a problem. It's a problem. That statistic of the 4 goals is a problem. Carlson did actually say we all make mistakes, but we need to cut them out, as we've spoken to the players about it as well. So it's good that he's spoken to the players about it. Hopefully they take that on and can improve. That's the main thing. He said we've been very unlucky with injuries, which, like we've just said, I think we can agree with that. No Rob Atkinson, Josh Ruffles or Goring for 80% of the season. Now, it is 80% of the season without those players. That is a big difference. You look at all those players, they're big players for Oxford United. So, that isn't ideal. That's not ideal whatsoever as well. No Winnall so far this season other than the other 10 minutes, and Brannigan with the eye injury as well, like I've just mentioned. An interesting thing that Carl Robinson said as well, probably one of the last points of the preview, but he said it's been a crazy for so many, it has been a crazy and so many things have affected that would have been our strongest squad. Our strongest team has not played together yet, but we've brought in players to stake a claim for their places, and they now have to stand up and be counted, which is a line in all times of football. When you get the opportunity, you've got to take it into hands, because ultimately there's people behind you that want that position. It's the same with a job, really. If you've got a management job, someone else wants that job as well. You've always got to be on your toes, and that's why you've got to be performing at your best. Have the players that have come in for those players done as good of a job as them? Question marks there. I'll let you think about that as well. But that's the preview. That's what we've got to look out for. Fleetwood are going to be a really good side. This game now is going to difference probably, and I keep saying this for every preview, but the difference between a successful season and a bad one. Are we going to be relegation candidates this season? Are we going to be going down this season? Let us know, of course. Hopefully some Swindon fans will come in the comments and say we will be going down this season. That would be embarrassing. I would say we're not going to, but I just don't know the way we're playing at the moment. We're playing okay and we're playing well at times, but ultimately the results aren't going our way, and ultimately the league table isn't, oh, they're bottom of the league, but they're playing good football. It's at the bottom of the league because they've got less points than everybody else in the League One season. So it's very, very difficult. Hopefully we can sort that out. Hopefully we can resolve the issues going on at Oxford United on the pitch. Hopefully Carl Robinson and the players can come together in the next few. I guess we'll call this on Friday. Hopefully it might come out on Friday, if not Saturday morning. So this could be game day or it could be the day before. But Carl Robinson's got to get his head together, and the players have got to get their heads together and sort this out. It's not going to be an easy game as well. I do normally do the predicted lineup. I haven't written it down. I've completely forgotten. Eastwood in goal. People are saying to start Jack Stevens. Let's remember what Simon Eastwood has done, people. Simon Eastwood's been a huge part of Oxford United. He's a loyal member. I wouldn't drop him. The goalkeeper, if you make a mistake, it normally ends up in a goal 9 times out of 10. I wouldn't drop Simon Eastwood, unfortunately, for the people that want Jack Stevens. I think Jack Stevens is a good goalkeeper, but I wouldn't drop him. Josh Ruffles will have to play at left back. The back four picks itself. It's going to be Longy. Longy, sound like Carl Robinson there. Sam Long and Elliot Moore. Right back, Sean Clare. Gorin, in my opinion, and then probably Anthony Ford if he's fit, and Marcus McGuane if he's fit. If not, Sykes will be in there. Henry Taylor and Shadipo probably will start. If not, it might be someone else. Maybe McGuane comes in. I'm not too sure there, but that's my predicted lineup. That's what I think it's going to be. If I'm going to do a score prediction, I can't see us winning. I think we're going to draw this game. It'd be a bad point. It wouldn't be a great point. I reckon Oxford United are going to draw this game with Fleetwood. Be better than a loss, of course, but we need 3 points at this point in the season. Of course we do. I reckon it's going to be a draw. It's going to be 1-1. I haven't got a great record when it comes to predicting scores for Oxford United this season. Sorry about the surroundings. We're not in the normal podcast area, not the normal young fan podcast studio. Is it a studio? It's not really. It's just a corner of my bedroom with a microphone and a few lights. But ultimately, thank you very much for the sort of the podcast. Remember, subscribe, all the social medias, follow what you've got to do with them as well. Subscribe, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you so much for the continued support. Thank you very much for the support on the ranking show as well. Without you, this podcast wouldn't be a thing. Without you, I won't continue creating the podcast content. Hopefully, you're enjoying it. I certainly am. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Young Fan Podcast, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.